So I wanted to talk to you about about how you express your gender, and about how people express their gender and how people perceive gender. So there has been some confusion. Now, Maria Miller was warned in the consultation that was botched about the likelihood of predatory males using the word trans to try and get access to the female prisoner state. And she was very foolish in ignoring that, because actually the way that these systems work is that we actually have a baseline of political responsibility for this. And if you have a look at the evolution of our laws in the last 70 years, you'll find that gender is already represented. Gender is a system of subordination. It's a system. Now, I want you to Google the Duluth wheel, D-U-L-U-T-H. That is a visual representation of what we understand about male pattern abusive behaviour, and it's been used since the mid-80s, across national borders, different countries, because actually it's very, very reliable. And in fact, abusive male pattern behaviour is often very, very reliable. And we don't like to acknowledge it, and our understanding of this has grown within systems which are kind of hidden from view. But these systems are the site of political responsibility for this. So even the politicians who think that they don't know, they do. So I'm going to explain some things about UK responsibilities regarding gender. So in the UK, women are, particularly mothers with responsibility for children, are legally required to be literate in identifying and managing abusive male pattern behaviour. We have been for a very long time. This is not new. We are a nation of women who know how to do this. And we've known how to do this for a very long time, because abusive behaviour is quite distinctive, and we have really gotten the message. It's not legally acceptable, it's not socially acceptable. And identifying as a woman is not a way to identify back into being able to demonstrate male pattern abusive behaviour without being spotted. Now, on Twitter it currently is. So this is useful. Twitter is a really useful little fishbowl to watch at the moment, which is why it's telling you about all the institutions who don't know about this. So we're just going to run through some things, some examples to show you. So if we take a rather prominent activist on Twitter, who has a mainstream political party backing them, and they have stated that their identity as a woman means that they need to systematically target 50,000 women, identified because they are discussing inequality they live. And because this person has imagined a connection with 50,000 women, he is now engaged in targeting, stalking and abusing 50,000 women. That person has expressed their gender through their behaviour. They have told women that because of a connection they imagine, that they believe an appropriate behaviour is stalking and harassing them using turf blocker. Well, you can take that at face value. When somebody tells you as a lesbian that they believe that your sexuality is changed by something going on in their head, and then they push you to assert that you do not include male bodies in your sexuality, that's just a male sexually abusing a woman. So the law is clear that once male pattern abusive behaviour is demonstrated, women are legally obliged to disregard your identity and focus on your behaviour. And the reason that they are required to do that is because they are also the bottom line of political responsibility for managing the impact of abuse. And they will be held liable even if Maria Miller decides to ignore the baseline of what she is supposed to understand. So this has not changed because of trans identities, and there is no trans identity which means that male pattern abusive behaviour is suddenly not abusive. At all. Now, not all trans women behave like this, and not all men do. In fact, all functioning adults in the UK know the difference between abusive behaviour and not. And what Twitter is offering you a very, very interesting demonstration of is what happens when institutions are not aware of those power dynamics, are not aware of those laws, and are not aware of the dynamics of abuse. and how easily male pattern abusive behaviour is normalised and made routine. And they provide a pretty nasty looking little demonstration of that. Because what's going on Twitter with regards to trans rights activists, it's not subtle, it's extreme violent misogyny that's been let rip. Now, I don't know any trans women who have ever thought that their identity meant that they could start behaving like an abusive male, because only really abusive males do that. So with regard to this debate, I think it's probably best being clear and upfront right now. There is nothing in gender recognition certificates that removes women's ability to do that. You are still responsible for your own behaviour. Recognition in equality legislation is recognition that equality is contested and protection in some areas. Gender recognition certification, which are already being awarded to very serious sex offenders in prisons, can't then be automatic passports to spaces of safety from male violence. And the barometer to whether you get access to safe spaces of safety from male violence is your behaviour. And if you demonstrate male pattern behaviour, no woman in the UK is required to even consider your identity, and in fact would be chastised by the courts for doing so.